Hello everybody, it's Anthony here from Cutting Edge Guitar. Today's lesson is another quick tip lesson for you, and what I want to talk about in this lesson is an easy way to solo over altered dominant chords. Okay, so this is for the guitarists among you that are looking at getting into a more fusion kind of vibe. So personally, I come from a rock background. I'm a rock guitarist, grew up with pop punk and everything being in the charts when I was playing the guitar. Then we had a number of bands like The Darkness, like stealing the charts when I was learning to play. So I was getting #1 hits with lead guitar solos and all this sort of stuff. So that's what I grew up wanting to play, and that was where I sort of learnt technical lead guitar and those sorts of things. But after a while of playing, after doing like thrash metal and all those sorts of things, I kind of got a bit fed up with rock harmony, which is when I found jazz music. Now, to be fair, although I love the harmony involved in jazz music, I still wanted it to sound like the rock stuff that I was doing. So that's what got me into fusion players like Frank Gambale, Greg Howe, Guthrie Govan, all of these sorts of players. Sean Lane was another one that I'm really into. So looking at that, the harmony or the level of harmony that these guys are using is completely different to the rock player, playing over changes and all that sort of thing. Now, one of the chords that's so important in this kind of music is the altered dominant chord, where you've got like a functioning 5 chord that goes down to the 1 chord. Now, this is quite a big theory concept that I don't really want to go into the whole meat and potatoes of that here, because obviously this is a quick tip lesson. So if you want to check out that sort of stuff, I have a tutorial on my website that's all about scales and all that sort of thing. There's a link in the description to that. You can check that one out for a really in-depth discussion about these sorts of things. But what I want to talk about here is an easy way to play over that kind of chord, because as you can imagine, being a rock player, I was fairly confident with modes of the major scale, pentatonics and all that sort of thing. So when you come over to the jazz side, there's a whole new load of scales to learn. You've got to learn all about melodic minor, all the modes of melodic minor, diminished scales, whole tone scales, all the old different altered scales. There's loads and loads of things to learn in the harmony. And I was like, well, I'm a pretty proficient guitar player technically. I just want to get into playing some of this stuff straight away. So I analysed what was in the obvious choice for playing over an altered dominant chord, which is something called the altered scale. Now, the altered scale is called such because every note in it, other than the root note of course, is flattened. So in the altered scale you've got 1, flat 2, flat 3, flat 4, flat 5, flat 6 and flat 7. Now with that is the ideal sound for playing over an altered chord, but it was a new thing that I had to learn, and being a young sort of rock guy, I just wanted to get into this stuff. So analysing it, there's another name for this scale. It's called Super Locrian. The altered scale is also called Super Locrian. Now why it's called Super Locrian is because it's like a normal Locrian mode from the major scale, but it's got one extra alteration which makes it even more Locrian, so we call it Super Locrian. Okay. Now I looked at this and I thought, well, I'm pretty comfortable with the major scale modes and everything, so why couldn't I just use the normal Locrian mode on the altered dominant chords? Now when you think about this, if I'm playing over an A7 altered, one of my favourite types of that is A7 sharp 5. Looks like that, okay? When I would play over that with the altered scale, as I said, I've got 1, flat 2, flat 3, 4, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7. If I wanted to play over that using the normal Locrian mode, I've still got my root note, of course. I've got my flat 2, flat 3, I've got a normal 4, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7. So another way of looking at these, the notes that we've got here, the flat 2 and the flat 3, well, a flat 3 is the same thing as a sharp 2 or a sharp 9. If we're thinking about alterations that you want to get, you want flat 9, sharp 9, flat 5, sharp 5. So with Locrian I've got flat 9, sharp 9, I've got a normal 4, I've then got flat 5, sharp 5 and flat 7. Now the thing with this, I analysed this and I was thinking, okay, let's give this a try and see what it sounds like. And to my ears, that sounds altered enough. I'm not really missing the fact that I've got that, not got that flat 4. So I tried this and it worked. So I started playing over chord progression. So I've got a track on my channel which is like a jazzy, chill out, fusion type jam, which is going like this: A major 7 to an A flat 7 sharp 5, which is functioning, resolving to a C sharp minor 7. So there we've got an altered 5-1 cadence, and then we've got an F sharp 13 taking us back to our A major 7. So that's like a nice, it's a common sort of jazzy, fusiony vibe chord progression. Now, looking at how I would solo over this, using my Locrian shortcut, or easy answer if you will, over that A major 7, I'd probably use the A Lydian mode. Now when the A flat or the G sharp 7 sharp 5 comes in, I would look at using the G sharp Locrian mode rather than G sharp super Locrian. So over that chord I'd get this sound. Then resolves to my C sharp minor 7, which I would change my thinking then to Dorian and Mixolydian for the F sharp 13. But the point is, over this G sharp altered chord, by thinking about it as the Locrian mode, which is something that I'm already super familiar with, being a rock guitarist that's comfortable with modes, I now don't need to learn a whole host of new scale shapes. So I'm not saying don't learn those new scale shapes. Obviously you're going to want to learn all the extended harmony and go and learn all of these other exciting things, but this gives you a way in as a rock guitarist that means that you don't have to go, oh, I can't play over those kind of changes. You have a scale in your vocabulary already that works and it does the job. Okay, so anytime that I would see that, if you're looking at playing over, say, a 2-5-1, let's say if I'm going to do a 2-5-1 in A, so minor or major, either way, if I'm playing B minor 7 flat 5, 2 in A minor, E7 altered, down to my A minor 7. How I would look at using this approach over this is on my 2 chord. You can play either B Locrian, or you can play B Locrian natural 6, whichever one you want to do. I mean, there's loads of options for those chords as well, but that's the obvious one. When you go to your E altered, which is functioning, resolving back to your A minor 7, I would look at playing over that E Locrian. And then obviously A Dorian or something like that over the A minor 7. Now, another way of thinking about this, which you might find useful, is that although this is E Locrian, if you think about it from the flat 9 of that chord, a semitone up, you're actually just playing the F major scale. because E Locrian is the 7th mode of F major. So this is another way of thinking through this chord progression, or sorry, on the altered dominant chords, that you might find really helpful. So if I go back to the other chord progression I was using, so my A major 7 to G sharp 7 altered, what I could do is, instead of think about G sharp Locrian, I could just think I'll play A major. Obviously I've got to resolve it to the root of the chord, but if you think from your altered dominant chord, if you think a semitone up, I'm just going to play the major scale, that's even easier because you're probably really comfortable with the major scale already. So whatever altered chord you're playing on, play a major scale, a semitone up, and any devices that you like to use from the major scale as well, and you'll get this really cool altered sound. Okay, that's my quick tip for today's lesson. So experiment with that. If you want some more information about scales, if you're still not comfortable with modes of the major scale, or you want to start looking at some of those altered scales that I've talked about, super Locrian or maybe diminished and those other things, check out the link in the description, which is a tutorial on my website called Cutting Edge Guitar Scales. If you've got any questions or queries or anything like that for me, guys, please do drop me a line in the comments. Hope you found this lesson helpful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.